Ooh, it's hot. So last year I made a video about the movie Yesterday where I spent half an hour tearing it to shreds for various reasons, and I think it really surprised some people. I guess being the Beatles fan that I am, people thought that I would automatically like it, and no. But also because I usually make videos about music and films that I love, which I think I generally prefer because of the positivity I'm putting out there, which generally gets reflected back in the comments, which is really nice.
I guess love truly is all you...
I never want to become one of those channels that's like, why this movie sucks! Everything wrong with all the things you love, you f***ing dumbass. I often think that's just kind of a cynical way to get shallow views. So then on my Yesterday video, there were all these reactions that were like, hey, come on, it's just a fun, lighthearted movie, stop taking it so seriously. Other people telling me to go and make a film of my own if I didn't like it, and it's like, do you know how film criticism works? People will defend that movie to their grave, I have realized. And while I stand behind every single thing I said in that video, I do understand to a degree where people are coming from. Especially the ones who mentioned that the film actually helped them get into the Beatles, which, as I say in the video, is always worth celebrating. However, the film I'd like to talk about today, well, let's just say I don't think anyone's going to be rushing to its defense. I don't think, unlike Yesterday, that this film holds a special place in anyone's heart. Today, I'm going to be talking about the movie Stardust. No, not that Stardust. That movie's a freaking blast. No, I'm referring to the controversial biopic about
David Bowie.
Yeah, that one. Now, a lot of you may not be aware that such a movie exists, and I wouldn't blame you. If you Google Stardust, you have to scroll pretty far down before it actually comes up with results relating to this film, with Google opting for the far superior 2007 one. The other thing about this film is that its release was completely buried. It was supposed to premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival in April of 2020, but we all know what was going on in April of 2020. So IFC eventually just released it at the end of the same year. I also love that when you look up the release on Wikipedia, the citation just says, where? Comment down below, I'm genuinely curious. Did you see this movie in theaters? Did you see Stardust at the cinema? It only made $9,000 at the domestic box office, so I really don't think I'm gonna get many responses. Like, I just wanna stress that even in times like these, how bad $9,000 is at the US box office. Especially when you consider that even a small scale indie movie usually has a budget of at least $1 million. Weirdly, the only two other countries that seemed to get a theatrical release were Portugal and Russia, so So why was this film controversial in the first place? Well, a big reason is that David Bowie never wanted a biopic made about him. His family adhered to this and flat out refused to license any David Bowie songs for the film. You can even check out this tweet from Bowie's son Duncan Jones regarding the buzz around the film's pre-production. Meaning this David Bowie biopic features 0 David Bowie songs. Not off to a great start, guys. Now, that's not to say that a biopic about a musician that doesn't feature their songs is automatically a bad film. Both Nowhere Boy and Backbeat, two films that focus primarily on John Lennon before the Beatles rose to fame, feature no Beatles songs, but both films were set years before the Beatles released their first album, and also those films have everything else going for them, including great performances, excellent shots, and compelling stories. Stardust, which is set once Bowie had already released 3 albums, features none of those other traits. Now, at this point you might be thinking, Bowie never wanted a biopic made about him, his family never wanted this biopic made about him, the film won't contain any Bowie songs. Maybe at this point you just don't make the film. But director and co-writer Gabriel Range had other ideas. So before I dive into why this film should never have been made, I'll first point out what's good about it. The first thing that I think Stardust has going for it is the setting of its time and place. Instead of trying to condense Bowie's entire life into a 2-hour film, Stardust focuses on the years 1970 to 72, which was when Bowie had started releasing albums but hadn't come up with his Ziggy Stardust persona that helped to launch him as an international star. In fact, he'd really only had one hit in England, which was Space Oddity off his second self-titled album,
Ground Control to Major Tom.
But he hadn't broken any ground in America yet. Stardust explores his first trip to the US in 1971.
Hello.
As he tries to get gigs from the help of his new American publicist, Ron Oberman, played by Mark Maron, doing his Mark Maron thing.
Turn into Coco the fucking clown and do the mystical mime act.
However, Bowie obtained the wrong kind of visa and can't legally play concerts, but through radio interviews and experiencing other artists like the Velvet Underground and Iggy Pop, Bowie starts to shape the Ziggy Stardust persona that kickstarts his career. I do think that focusing on this more unknown period of Bowie's career is an intriguing concept for a film. You may have seen my video on my favorite music biopic, Love and Mercy, I'll link it up here, about Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, which focuses on two transformative periods of his life, which I think is a major reason why it paints a deeper picture of the man, as opposed to trying to cram in his entire life. By honing in on this early time in Bowie's career, the film attempts to show us who David Bowie was before all his many personas took over his public image, which made the real David Bowie something of an enigma, a mystery. This real David Bowie was intentionally kept a mystery. As Bowie said in Rolling Stone in 1976, "Don't expect to find the real me, the David Jones underneath all this." So I will give the film props in their attempt to explore this more undefined period in Bowie's life. Let's see what else is good about this film. The set dressing and the costumes all seem to be pretty accurate to the period. The poster's good. I mean, that's a terrific poster. And that's it. That's everything this film has going for it. Now let's talk about everything else. Firstly, Johnny Flynn, our main dude. Before I even get to his performance, I want to point out that he just doesn't look enough like David Bowie. I mean, occasionally from a certain angle there's a slight resemblance, and to be quite frank, I think the need for actors to be total doppelgangers to the person they're playing in films is way overblown. I think we need to allow actors to let the character come through the performance and not be so hung up on the fact that their eye color or their head shape doesn't match. But what I can't forgive is the absurd age gap. Johnny Flynn was 37 years old, playing a man who's meant to be 24.
At the funeral of my youth.
Why do biopics keep doing this? And look, I'd understand if he was playing Bowie throughout the 70s and 80s, but this film doesn't go beyond 1972. And especially as this film is about Bowie's innocence as a young artist coming to terms with his identity. A guy in his late 30s, no matter how young he looks, is just never going to be able to embody that youthful naivete. Also, because Bowie looks so androgynous and unblemished around this time, makes the casting choice of Johnny Flynn, who's a lot more sturdy looking, just so off the mark. To give you an idea, this is how Bowie looked at 37 in all his Let's Dance New Romantics glory. It gets even worse when you learn that Mark Maron, who was 56 at the time of shooting, played Ron Oberman, Bowie's 28-year-old publicist. He was literally playing a guy half his age. Like, what are they gonna make, a Prince biopic starring Morgan Freeman? Like, what are we doing? Back to Johnny Flynn, his performance is kind of all over the place. His Bowie flips between thinking he's going to be the world's biggest pop icon to someone who's unsure he has any talent at all. But to be fair, this unevenness may come down to the script and direction by Gabriel Range. Otherwise, I just feel like we never get to the heart of who he is and what drives him. In fact, everyone's motivations in this film are more or less non-existent. He's also just trapped in his own vocal affectations and never feels like his voice sits comfortably in the role.
Hey, I came here to be a fucking star, and I'm playing little parties.
And although this is a lesser known period in Bowie's life, it's not like Flynn and the filmmakers didn't have resources to flesh out the character and story. Ron Oberman's real brother Michael, who was there on that first US tour, even contacted the filmmakers and offered to tell them what happened, but didn't get a reply from the director until after it was all filmed. According to Michael Oberman, this interpretation does not grasp the essence of Bowie's true character, and is quoted as saying, "Johnny Flynn's version of David being so insecure was not the David I knew. The producers had a chance to get it right and they chose not to." Then Mark Maron, who I think is a good actor in the right role, is kind of on autopilot here, but I can't really blame him too much. As previously stated, he's just miscast. Jenna Malone plays Bowie's first wife, Angie. And the character's also just written awfully bad.
No!
Playing on the same tired tropes of the put-upon wife of the rock and roller who's always fed up with how his career is going.
You navel-gazing fucking selfish bastard.
It's giving Kristen Wiig in Walk Hard.
I am tired of hearing about your dreams, Dewey Cox. You are a selfish dickhole!
Needless to say, the real Angie absolutely hated the film. Quote, "It should be called the Ron Oberman whinging and whining story." Then you've got the focus on David Bowie's mentally unwell older brother Terry, who, along with several other members of Bowie's family who suffered from schizophrenia, has Bowie fearing that this seemingly hereditary mental illness will see him lose his own sanity.
It's happening.
And it's implied that this contributes to his need to adopt different personas like Ziggy Stardust. Well, that and the fact that the film really hits you over the head with how he should just become someone else.
If you can't be yourself,
Well, I can't, can I?
well then be someone else. Be someone else.
According to Johnny Flynn, the fact that Stardust was made independently is the reason the film was able to include these scenes. He's quoted as saying, "If it were a bigger budget movie, a studio would probably tell you to take that stuff out. That happened with the Queen film, which is why it ended up with its manipulated emotional finale." Okay, so just a bit of media training advice for you, Johnny, and please don't take this the wrong way, but if your strategy to market your biographical film is to bash a more successful biographical film, you're already losing. But wait, there's more. It was much more interesting than doing a greatest hits jukebox musical. I think people think this is a cynical biopic in the vein of Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket Man. Then they're offended by the idea that it's not. Alright, look, I've certainly made it clear that I'm no fan of Bohemian Rhapsody. I point out its many flaws in my Love and Mercy video, but again, I can't believe this guy has me defending Bohemian Rhapsody. That movie, worthy or not, won several Academy Awards, and although it is a sanitized cash grab of a film,
Oh, that's really good.
at least it features plenty of Queen songs. But apparently that's part of why it sucks. Nobody is interested in me singing David Bowie songs, just like I'm not interested in Rami Malek singing Queen songs. Yeah, man, I suppose I'm not interested in you singing David Bowie songs, so why would we be interested in you playing David Bowie at all? Like, why did you do this film? If we're going to watch your film where you play David Bowie, what, we're gonna draw the line when you start singing Space Oddity? That's what we all came to see. It's such a big reason why we go to see music biopics. David Bowie was a musician. He was known first and foremost for his songs. Don't pretend that it's somehow edgier to not have them in the film. I can't with this guy anymore. Also, Rocket Man, not nearly as bad of a film as Bohemian Rhapsody. He even plays the cancel culture card and calls out people's frustration with a film because they dared to have a problem with a non-Bowie approved Bowie movie being made. I'm not saying he's a bad actor or even a bad guy. It's just what a disaster. Look, there's other things I could nitpick about this film. The wigs are absolutely shocking, and you know how I feel about bad wigs. It's so set in place and has no movement to it, and honestly, it really takes me out of the movie. They couldn't even get Bowie's incredibly famous Ziggy Stardust hair correct. It's such an iconic look, and aside from the color, they completely botched it. Ultimately, this is just a really boring film. Not even enjoyable on a so bad it's good level, just really dull and meandering. And if there's one word you'd never ascribe to David Bowie, it's boring. He was a visionary artist who, even in his early years, before he adopted his many personas like Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke, cared deeply about his art, his music, the way he boldly surprised his audience at every turn. That mattered to him, and it's such a shame to see those same elements not matter to the people involved in making this film. So let this be a lesson to any writer, director, actor who is thinking about taking on the task of portraying a musical legend in a feature film. Don't do what Stardust did. Otherwise, all you'll hear from the people who saw it is,
And it really sucked.
So to the 9 people who saw this film, let me know what you thought of it. Is there anyone out there who can make a good case for it? Maybe I'm an idiot and I missed the genius of this film, and if I did, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to join, the link is in the description, and I'll be back again soon, talking about things that I actually like. But until then, stay safe everyone, and I'll see you next time.